I was cleaning glasses in the kitchen at about midday when Helga came to see me. "I've been hearing rumors," she said. "Right," I said. Helga leaned back against the wall beside me and folded her arms. "You and 2 girls. And that is your business, why?" I asked. "Roxy and Fiora," said Helga bluntly. "I've been watching them for a long time, been taking good care of them too. They're lovely girls and they're my girls and they're destined for the pot." I gritted my teeth. "Right. They didn't tell you?" asked Helga uncertainly. "That's not like them." I tried to leave things be. "Well, that's your business. I don't see what that's got to do with me." Helga snorted. "You tried to talk Sammy out of going with Merle yesterday and Sammy can heal." I tried again. "Look, what do you want me to say?" "The truth," said Helga seriously. "You just watched your whole planet fall to the Contravoxai and you think I'm stupid enough to see nothing dangerous in you having a threesome with 2 girls who, if not for Sammy and Carla turning up yesterday, would be dead?" Now I stopped cleaning glasses. I turned to Helga, fire in my eyes. "How many have you killed? How many have died because you feel pity for that thing?" Helga was calm. "I lost count a long time ago, but 2 every 3 months over let's say 25 years, I dunno, maybe more. Some days there'd be a really important Contravoxai dignitary or something and I'd have to ask for someone else to." I stared at her. 200 people. Over 200 people have died because of your pity?" Helga nodded. "Sounds about right, but they all had good lives and they all had good deaths and they all went willingly." "How does your society even function?" I asked, beyond outraged and disgusted. "We have a lot of kids on a regular basis, we have very good medical technology and we all honestly believe that dying for the Contravoxai is a profound honor," said Helga. I shook my head. And I thought my world had problems. "This is monstrous. I should kill you. I should kill you right now. I mean, you've openly stated that you'll kill again. I could save them." Helga shook her head. "You think this is just me? That I'm some lone mass murderer? You've seen the dining halls, you were eaten at one. I am kind. I am sparing. I am compassionate. I only ask for 2 a month. There are places that take 200 a day. You kill me and Roxy and Fiora will still die. They are destined for the pot. What are you going to do, lead a revolution? Well, good luck, because we don't want one." I closed my eyes and caught my reflection in the washing up water, then I stared at Helga. "No, I don't need to. I can save them and save all the others who old die after them." "No. You can't," said Helga gently. "Then why am I still alive?" I asked bluntly. Helga stared at me. "No. You haven't, have you? It's bad enough having 1 wereshark, let alone 3. I shook my head then shrugged. "Sammy's a wereshark, Carla's a wereshark, Amy's a wereshark, heck even Lisa and Lucy are weresharks." Helga shook her head. "You're chasing dreams." "If I can be cured then Roxy and Fiora can be saved," I said. "And you would condemn them to an immortality of being eaten alive?" asked Helga seriously. "I mean I would, but as we've established I'm a mass murderer. Could you live with yourself?" "Well, Sammy and the others seem pretty fine with it," I said pointedly. "And besides, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." Helga said firmly, "They're for the pot, Steve, let it go and forget about them." I made to leave the kitchen and then I paused and leaned in close to Helga. "I am going to save Roxy and Fiora, and if something happens to them I will hold you responsible, and you really don't want that, because never mind being a wereshark, I am a man who has lost so very much and just been told that the small joy I have just found is something you plan to take away from me as well. Roxy and Fiora are under my protection, you understand?" Helga nodded. "Well, with Sammy taking a shine to Merle I won't be needing Roxy and Fiora for a while anyway." I left to find Roxy and Fiora. I arrived on the 3rd floor and saw an open fire with a brick facade hiding some kind of advanced smoke extractor, and there, rotating slowly on a metal shaft over the fire, was Lisa. I approached her and saw that, though the charring from the fire and spice marinade made it hard to tell from a distance, she was completely naked. Her head had been shaved. The shaft entered her mouth, continued down her throat and roughly through her midsection until it exited via her asshole and pierced the palms of her hands before continuing on a while and finally piercing the soles of her feet. Her arms and legs were also bound tightly with string. "Quite the sight, isn't she?" said a wise upper-class-sounding woman beside me. "Amazing to think she's still alive." I nodded and added, "Amazing to think that she actually enjoys this." The woman beside me smirked. "Oh, does she? Then I won't feel bad about taking a slice or two." Then, as I watched, 2 tentacles whipped out to halt the turning of Lisa on the spit. 2 brought over a plate and held it steady beside Lisa's left arse cheek, and a 5th and 6th carved Lisa's roasted flesh from her arse and placed it on a plate. I stared, then turned to look at this upper-class woman. She was a Contravoxai wearing what I can only describe as some alien form of stylish scarf, waistcoat, skirt and high heels. It was an absurd sight. "Oh, where are my manners? You want a plate too?" said the sharp-dressed Contravoxai, and she brought up a different plate with 2 more tentacles. Then she carved off some more of Lisa's flesh and presented the plate to me. She looked at me expectantly and presented me with the plate of flesh. I took it and said, "Thank you." "Charlotte Kensington," said the sharp-dressed Contravoxai, and she stretched out a tentacle. I shook it. "Steve Banks." She regarded me for a moment, then said, "You're English, aren't you? Properly English?" "Well, yes," I said, and then I twigged. I am not hearing a translation, am I? You're genuinely speaking English. She bowed her head to show off a toothy grin. "My ship got shot down by a Graphilod cruiser when I was but a spalling, and I was raised by one Edmund Kensington. He taught me manners and morality. You need not fear me, Steve, I am not like the brutes that raised your world." I regarded her for a moment, then said, "You know I'm an escapee?" She nodded, an absurdly human gesture. "If you ever need help, these are my coordinates." She handed me a note of paper with a long string of numbers on it. I put it in my pocket. "Thank you. You have friends here, Steve. Not every Contravoxai believes a Vligary's life should be so easily discarded. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a drunk over there about to try his luck with 2 Vligary girls," said Charlotte before walking away. I stared after her, then remembered where I was standing and approached Lisa's head. I stopped the spit spinning with my left hand and booped her nose with my right. She opened her eyes and the corners of her mouth turned upwards. I held my plate where she could see and watched her recognize and try to squeal in excitement. "Lisa," I said carefully, "you are an utterly weird individual, but I can see why Carla likes you." Lisa blushed as I stroked her bald head, then I left her to rotate on the spit. I scanned the crowd and saw Fiora sitting with Roxy and some other guy. I approached. They were wearing what they had been wearing yesterday and clearly hadn't been home. The man looked tall, skinny and nervous. He seemed to be very young and wore a suit jacket over trackies and a t-shirt with some Contravoxai slogan on it that my were-shark understanding told me meant, "My sausage brings all the Contravoxai to the pub." "You're eating, Lisa?" asked Roxy curiously. "Isn't that against your whole thou shalt not eat people thing?" I said. "Hey, you can have it if you want, this nice Contravoxai carved it for me." "Oh, cheers," said Roxy enthusiastically. I handed over the plate and asked, "So who's this guy?" Fiora snorted. "We've known him for years." I shrugged. He stretched out a hand. Glenn Johnson. I'm, unemployed." I shook his hand. "Steve Banks. We're shark on the run from the Contravoxai." He stared me. "Really?" "Yeah," I said. "What's it to you?" "He wants to go on the spit," said Fiora with a smirk. "But Chicken Little doesn't want to die," said Roxy with a chuckle. He frowned and shrugged. "I know it's cowardly of me, I mean, I really wanna do it, to just lie back and let others take from me, but I want to live. I grinned. I can help you. What? Asked Fiora, stunned. Roxy glared at me. Give it up, man, we're gonna get eaten by Merle and Glenn's gonna get on that spit. That's how it's gonna go. How? Asked Glenn, ignoring them. I think you know how, I said quietly. I'm a wereshark and I am going to get cured of the whole angry rage thing, and when I do, well, I'll be like Sammy and Carla and, yes, even Lisa. This is actually why I came to find you. Fiora sighed. Roxy's right, Steve. You don't need to save us. We're going to be eaten by Merle and we're okay with that. He's a nice guy. Except I learned from Helga that, just by coming here, I've saved you too, I said pointedly. Roxy stared at me. Fiora asked. What? If I hadn't shown up here, if Sammy and Carla hadn't come with me, you would have been fed to him last night, I said. Fiora shuddered. Roxy said very quietly. Shit, Glenn said. Yeah, giving your life nobly to be a nice meal for a Contravoxai is all very well when it's some abstract future destination. Almost nice in a way when you've just graduated university and have no idea what you're going to do with your life. I don't need to worry about my student debt or children or a pension because some nice Contravoxai is going to sweep me off my feet and make sure none of those worries ever happen. And then the day arrives and you think, you know what? I actually quite like life. Roxy frowned, but Merle's so nice and I've known for so long, I've dreamed about it. Those strong tentacles taking me. She shook her head. Glenn's right, I do want to live, but Merle's been my destination for so long, I can't imagine anything else. I don't think that's the problem, said Fiora curiously. You aren't saving us from Merle, are you? You're saving us from death? I closed my eyes, swallowed, then nodded. Roxy asked. But what does that even mean? It means you're going to remain under Helga's charge, and probably under Eliza's charge and whoever inherits the business after that too. It means you are going to get eaten alive every day until the end of time or the Contravoxai change their ways, I said seriously. It means you're going to be cattle. Fiora shrugged. We already are. Roxy smiled. I'm going to get eaten alive forever? It's the best I can do, I said with a shrug. Glenn grinned. I could take the spit every day. Thank you, I said. Then I got up from the table and said, I better go take my sanity potion. Then I looked at Fiora and Roxy and chucked them the key to my room. Stay with me until I get the cure, won't you? I don't trust Helga not to feed you to someone while I'm sleeping. Thank you, said Fiora. Roxy nodded and went to hug Fiora. Glenn said, You're a good guy, you know. I'll do my best to hold off Helga, if she comes for them. I nodded and left. As I approached the stairs, I saw Carla eating some meat from a plate as she watched Lisa turn. Helga approached Carla from behind and whispered something in her ear, then Carla walked off with Helga. I headed downstairs quickly. As I arrived at the bar, Eliza caught my eye, then wordlessly slit Lucy's throat so she could pour out a pint of her blood for me. Eliza placed the pint on the table, then wrapped a bandage round Lucy's throat. Lucy barely reacted. Helga's been taming her all day, said Eliza by way of explanation. Says it's kinda for the poor girl, but I think Helga likes it, having a submissive who'll obey her every whim. I drank the blood and studied Eliza's face. I wondered, what kind of woman would you have to be to send 200 girls and boys to their deaths, and what might that kind of woman do with a subordinate like Eliza? I shook my head and said, You know, I just saw her heading off with Carl. Eliza nodded sadly. I don't blame her. I took my pint and looked for somewhere to sit and drink it. As I walked, I overheard someone say, You don't turn 25 for at least another 3 months, you're fine. I turned to the sound. A short fat ginger man was trying to placate a tall blonde woman. I decided to sit at their table. You don't need to worry, I said. I know who's next for the chop and it's not you. And who are you? Asked the man. Steve Banks, I said. You? Gerald, said the man. Annabelle, said the woman. How do you know? Asked Gerald. Because I just had a threesome with the two lovely ladies who are next for the chop, I said. Okay, so I may have been bragging ever so slightly. Furo and Roxy. Annabelle said. But what if they're just paranoid like Gerald thinks I am? It could still be me. I shook my head and said, they aren't paranoid because the great lady of the manor, Mistress Helga Hufflepuff, warned me not to mess with her soon-to-be slaughtered lambs. What's a Hufflepuff? Asked Gerald. No idea, I said. The point is you are safe, trust me. Annabelle and Gerald both looked at me for a long moment, then Annabelle hugged me. Oh, thank you. Thank you ever so much. I patted her back and sipped my drink. Then Gerald announced, here he is again, the great garbage can for our youth. I turned to look. Merle entered carrying in his arms the bloodied remnants of Sammy's head, spinal column and hearts. His tentacles stretched out and placed them on the bar and he muttered, thank you, then he left. I extricated myself from Annabelle and approached the bar and wanted to vomit. It was a horrible sight. Thorough work, said Eliza, coldly dispassionate in the face of such horror. She must be used to the barbarity of the Contravoxai by now. He's left just enough of her intact that she will heal completely without risking creating a clone. I stared at Sammy's remains and thought of the woman whose beauty had so stolen my heart last night. I downed the pint of blood. Eliza stared at me, aghast. How can you drink blood having seen this? I slammed the empty glass on the table and burped. Because I need to have a word with Mr. Merle. Be careful, said Eliza. I laughed bitterly. The thing about Contravoxai is they've got eyes on the back of their head and tentacles on the back of their body. It is impossible to jump one from behind. Merle should have been easier to take on though, what with his missing eyes and lame tentacles. Except now that I looked at him, his eyes seemed to have grown back and his lame tentacles shot up and about my neck as Merle came to a stop. He hissed, you so much as squeal and I'll start applying pressure. What is your deal, kid? You ate my friend, I said. She consented and she lives, said Merle. And the others? I said. Merle was silent for a long time, then he asked, what do you hope to achieve? I want to stop the deaths, I said. Helga won't stop feeding people to you, but you might stop killing them. His tentacles released me. You seem like a smart kid, he said. But before I enlighten you, I want you to show me you're as smart as I think you are, so tell me, why is it that I am not as lame as I was yesterday? Sammy's DNA, I said. The sylph blood is what keeps my were-shark madness at bay. You ate Carlo and Sammy last night? That's a whole lot of sylph DNA in your system, supercharging it with leftover power. Good, said Merle. You really are smart, hopefully smart enough to avoid trying to kill me. Now come, Helga thinks I'm homeless, but that's not exactly true. I nodded. Lead on, Macduff. Merle snapped bitterly. Leon. It's Leon, Macduff. What do they teach you in school these days? Then Merle picked a direction and started walking on his 8 great spider-like legs. I followed. A short slender Contravoxai approached and curtsied towards us. How was the pub, honey? Oh, it was quite agreeable, and I've brought a friend to visit, if that's all right, said Merle warmly. The Contravoxai seemed to nod and said, enjoy your stay. Right, I said. Read any Harry Potter? Asked Merle. Ah, yes, I said, confused. Pretend she's platform 9 3/4, said Merle before charging, heading into the small Contravoxai and phasing out of existence. I shrugged and cried, Slytherin rules. I charged at the Contravoxai. I ran through the automatic double doors of a large atrium. There were plants in trees and pots everywhere, and mounted weapons, suits of armor and various treasures. Ornate wooden doors led off left, right and onwards. Merle stood beside me and looked rather bored. "Where the fuck are we?" I asked. Merle seemed to consider for a moment, then said, "Inside a very old friend." "The Contravoxai outside?" I asked. "My first love," said Merle. "She was dying of what you would know as cancer, and I found a way to extend her life, to give her near immortality." "How?" I asked. Merle started walking. I followed. "The world as you know it, as you have always known it, is an artificial construction of a nearly sentient force. Some call it the quantum flux, the net of life, or the dream weave, but the people currently running the multiverse call it logic," said Merle. "I found a way to harness the natural logic found in living creatures and focus it into glass spheres. The logic would suffuse the glass, turning it green, and it could then be expelled and directed at a target by shining a laser through the glass." "So you filled your love with logic?" I asked. "How does that make her immortal?" "It doesn't," said Merle bluntly. "But she always was a smart girl, and with the logic of several small villages inside her, she transcended biology and matter to become a sapient being composed entirely of logic. I had helped her become a god, and she became this for me. She reached into my mind and made her interior my dream home." He snorted in remembered amazement. "You know she can travel in time? She can voyage the entire multiverse, and she lets me travel with her, pilot her." "Pilot her?" I asked. The slender Contravoxai appeared beside me. "Yes, I have no desire to be a god, no desire to wander alone. I go where my love wants to, and I wouldn't have it any other way." I stared at her, quite taken aback. "Oh, sorry," said the Contravoxai, and her image flickered to be replaced with the image of Sammy in a short shirt and skirt. "Would this be more to you? Our tastes?" I swallowed. "Okay, so this is some kind of holographic projection?" "Real enough," said the image as her hands reached out for me and started to delve down my pants. Hey, I said as I backed away and tried to stop her. Merle said tersely, "Verity, please don't play with him." The image stopped and rather sulkily withdrew her hands. "You get to eat girls, why can't I enjoy one boy?" Merle groaned. I said, "Tell me, how many girls has he eaten?" "At least 3 million," said the image. I turned to Merle, furious. "Explain." Merle shrugged. "I'm a Contravoxai and nearly 2,000 years old." I said firmly, "It needs to end." "I know," said Merle quietly. "And it already has. If you'll just be patient, I'll show you." I sighed and waved him on. Merle led me through a labyrinth of corridors, including a patch of open sky where it was snowing, to a room deep in the bowels of the place. He paused outside a set of double doors and said, "What I have to show you now may be disturbing, but I assure you no one is in any pain." Then he opened the doors and we walked through. The first thing I noticed was the sound of artificial lungs and a series of regular bleeps. Merle stood in the center of the room and spread his arms wide. "Take a look around, let me know if you have any questions." So I looked. There were the remains of 8 different people hooked up to machines. They were in various states of condition. Some almost had an intact head and torso, but others were little more than a heart and skull, kept alive by complex machinery. 8 people, I said. "Or the remains of them." "Helga said she sent you 2 every 3 months. Merle nodded. The moment Sammy turned up I knew it wasn't a fluke. People could be eaten and recover. Or they could not be eaten, I said pointedly. Merle sighed. "This is a world full of predators, boy. Do you think that if I let one go they will skip off merrily to their happy ending? No. It is kinder to take and enjoy the lambs that throw themselves upon your mercy. These all belong to me now, and when you bring me cure I shall feast like a king and they will be glad of it." "So what? You eat a person then put them here, and you think that means you own them?" I asked angrily. "They gave themselves to me," said Merle casually. "And I keep them safely sedated in artificial comas so they may sleep until you bring me the cure." "And why shouldn't I kill you?" I asked bluntly. "You've killed so many." Because I am worth more alive as an ally, said Merle meaningfully. Your people are not yet lost, they can still be saved. If you can kill the Emperor, our great leader, then I can start a revolution and free your people. I stared at him. Yes, said Merle, a note of optimism in his voice. I see you recognize the magnitude of what I am saying. I will help you get home in whatever way I can, but we must keep this place as our little secret. I do not want Verity involved in this, you understand? She is too precious to me. I nodded. But if you ever take another, then my life will be forfeit, said Merle calmly. I made it back to the pub and Sammy was waiting for me at the bar, wearing a fitted t-shirt and short skirt. She was chatting idly to Eliza and petting Lucy like she was a puppy. Eliza spotted me and grabbed a glass. Within a minute a fresh bandage had been applied round Lucy's neck and I had a fresh pint of blood to drink. Sammy cooed over Lucy and said, Eliza tells me you had a little word with Merle? Yes, I said carefully. I did. Feeling jealous? She asked without looking at me. Well, I don't want to eat you, I said bluntly. At least not like that. Eliza smirked. Sammy looked me in the eyes. Then why did you see him? Because you saved my life and he eats you and I don't like that, I said bluntly. Sammy sighed. But I like being eaten. I like the sense of loss and powerlessness, of being insignificant and subservient. I sighed and approached her. In that moment all I wanted to do was take her in my arms and show her how she could feel that way with a partner who respected her as a person, but I stopped myself. I sipped my drink, stroked Lucy and said, he's eaten others. If I hadn't spoken to him he would have eaten more. Would have? Asked Eliza, arching an eyebrow. He's going to help us, I said. He is? Asked Sammy curiously. How did you manage that? I didn't, I said. You did. His eating you transferred a small amount of regenerative potential, like drinking from Lucy transfers the necessary subservience to stay sane. Sammy smirked. Eating me made him better? That's awesome. A tentacle whip passed us and tentatively tapped on the table for attention. Eliza looked up. Yes? I think you might want to take your girl off the spit. Her ribcage is showing and people have started cracking open her bones for the marrow, said a familiar voice. Yikes, said Eliza and she ran off. Sammy stared in awe. I coughed. The stylish Contravoxai regarded me for a moment, then hugged me with her tentacles with such force and excitement that I was lifted up into the air. Stephen, how nice to see you again. Sammy looked to me. You know this Contravoxai? I nodded and said, Sammy, may I introduce Miss Charlotte Kensington? Charlotte stepped back and studied Sammy, her tentacles hovering around Sammy. Sammy grinned. You're English, aren't you? Yes, and I never eat a girl who can't recover, said Charlotte cheerfully. May I make a closer examination? Sammy smirked and her cheeks flushed with color. She nodded. Charlotte's tentacles darted around Sammy and under her clothes. Within a moment Sammy was lifted off the ground as tentacles checked the weight, mass and strength of very bone and muscle in her body. How do you feel about things being inside you? Asked Charlotte casually. I stared at Charlotte. What kind of a question is that? Charlotte shrugged. I don't get to do this very often, I want to be thorough. Sammy was laughing her head off. Finally she calmed down enough to say, yes. Yes, Charlotte, I am fine with things inside me. Charlotte chuckled then said, well, open wide for me girl, I'll know when I've overstepped my bounds. Sammy opened her mouth and said as if at a dentist. A tentacle darted inside her mouth and started making a thorough examination. Then, rather abruptly, Charlotte laid Sammy back, standing, on the floor. Sorry, said Charlotte awkwardly. Ask me out on a date first before going there, yeah? Said Sammy, her face flushed completely red. Understood, said Charlotte quietly. You can still eat me though, said Sammy with a smirk. Charlotte was obviously taken aback. What? Why? Sammy chuckled. You asked, I just didn't quite understand what you meant, and you did save Lisa, so bite me. Charlotte was silent for a long moment. I sighed and said, Charlotte, you're a good egg, you saved 2 people earlier today. I like you. I know that Sammy isn't mine to give away, but she wants to be eaten by you, and this is me saying that if Sammy is going to be eaten by a Contravoxai, I would rather it was you. Sammy turned to look at me. You're serious? You're fine with me going with her? I like her, I said with a shrug. She only eats those who like it and can recover. Enjoy each other. Sammy kissed me on the lips and threw her arms around me, then said, Pick a cubicle, Charlotte, you're getting a free lunch. Charlotte shook her head. What? I don't understand. Pick me up, carry me into a cubicle, strip me naked and tear the flesh from my bones until only my hearts and brain are left, said Sammy slowly. Oh, said Charlotte sheepishly. Thank you. Then she enveloped Sammy in her tentacles and carried her off. Eliza arrived and said, Lisa's been taken to her room, she'll live. Where's Sammy? Making a Contravoxai very happy, I said. Eliza smirked. You too, huh? What? I asked, not understanding. Eliza placed 2 tumblers on the table and poured out measures of pass-through brandy. I haven't seen Helga all day, and neither have I seen Carla. She raised her tumbler in a toast. 2 absent crushes. I chuckled and raised my tumbler. 2 absent crushes.